I want to talk about Turning Red because I think it's the best Pixar movie in years, and also their most recent film that unfortunately did not get to go up on theaters. It went straight to Disney Plus, which is a totally jerk move. I mean, Raya and the Last Dragon did go on theaters when the lockdown was still really bad, so there's really no reason for Turning Red to go straight to Disney Plus. But I don't know, I don't really have any control over that thing. I'm just like a teenager with very little money talking to a camera. I mean, I don't really have any power over this. But let's talk about like the movie itself. But before that, I want to talk about my brief relationship history with Pixar films. It's okay, I'm only gonna talk about my relationship with Pixar films. I'm not gonna talk about my relationship with other people, because that's not something you want to know, and that's not something I want to say either. So let's talk about The Good Dinosaur, which I think is the first Pixar film that really felt mediocre or very average to me. And ever since The Good Dinosaur came out, all the other Pixar films started to feel really still and really repetitive and really average. There are exceptions. I mean, Coco was fine, but I don't think Coco was as great as Inside Out, which came out before The Good Dinosaur. And Inside Out came out in 2015, and I don't think we really had such a great movie since Inside Out, probably since 2015, which was when I just started middle school, and now I have already graduated middle school. And finally they made a good Pixar movie, yay! Well, time goes fast. What can I say? I didn't watch Luca, I didn't watch Cars 3, so I can't talk about those movies. But movies like Onward, for instance, Onward is just a super generic and forgettable movie. It would have been so much better if there wasn't a fantasy setting, if the movie was just in a real world. I just don't understand why it had to be a fantasy setting. It just didn't make a lot of sense other than to sell toys and to attract children. And it doesn't really serve the story that well either. And let's talk about Toy Story 4, which is an okay movie that was totally unnecessary because Toy Story 3 had the perfect ending and they just had to ruin it. I mean, if they just left everything beyond Toy Story 3 to the audience imagination, it would have been such a great ending. But let's talk about what other movie was there? Yeah, Soul, of course. I thought it was super overrated. A lot of the themes explored in the movie could have gone a lot deeper, but it seems like there was something holding the creators of the movie back. It's like they just don't dare to go deeper, and it just feels like a super unambitious movie because they only stop at a very shallow point when they could have gone a little bit deeper with their existential themes, their philosophical themes. And it's not like adults are going to appreciate Soul because I don't think there's anything in there that adults don't already know. It doesn't really offer any unique insight, and I don't think kids are gonna like it either because kids are gonna be totally alienated. They're not gonna care about this movie at all. And other movies that came out, like Coco at the time, I think Coco was good, but it started to feel like it was following the Pixar formula a little bit too much. So I think that's all. That's most of the films that I remembered that came out after Inside Out. And I don't think any of them were like quite as bad as The Good Dinosaur. The Good Dinosaur had a drug sequence. Anyone remembers that? Anyone remembers there's a drug part in The Good Dinosaur when the kid and the dinosaur get high on drugs? Anyway, let's talk about Turning Red, because all of that has led us up to Turning Red, which I think is just so much better than all of those movies. And the biggest reason why is because this movie actually takes risks. It actually does something different. And the biggest compliment I can give to this movie is that it doesn't feel like a Pixar movie, which is a huge compliment at this point, considering how predictable they have become. And let's start with the animation, because there are a lot of different things that culminate in this movie feeling different. But the most straightforward thing is the visuals, because it's an animation movie. The visuals are very important. And visually, this movie doesn't look anything like any other Pixar movie. Just the character designs themselves, you could see their faces, the way they move, it's very cartoonish. It really feels more like something that I think Sony would do than necessarily something that Pixar would do. And it's nice to see them branch out with their animation a little bit and start to incorporate different styles. And I like that there's anime influenced sequences in this movie as well. You'll know it when you see it. There's certain parts of this movie that really feel like anime, and you can start to feel different cultural influences that bleed into this movie, and that makes it really cool to watch because it has so many different inspiration and influences. And another great thing about this movie, you know, apart from the super cartoonish, over the top and colorful animation, is the story. The story this time, no spoilers of course, revolves around a group of teenage girls who want to go to a concert, but the main character's mom doesn't let her go to the concert. And that's all I'm gonna say. And that's actually kind of the whole story. That's the whole point of the movie, is this group of teenage girls who want to go to a concert. And Pixar has never tried something like this before. This story is just so out of what you expect from Pixar, and I just like that so much. Like how small this story is. It's just about teenage girls wanting to go to concerts. But of course, the movie makes it really dramatic, and you really feel for the characters. It actually makes the movie so much more relatable, because it's hard to relate to saving the world, or it's hard to relate to traveling to another dimension. It's easier to relate to you want to do something but your mom doesn't let you. Like when I was younger, I always wanted to play video games, but my mom just won't let me. My parents thought it would make me addicted. And I just waited for 10 years, and now 10 years later I'm addicted to video games. So I delayed it for 10 years and it still happened. Apparently it didn't work, Mom. It didn't work. Anyway, let's talk about the story. And just this story is so small. It's not something big, it's something really, really small. It only revolves around a few characters. You keep seeing the same characters pop up again and again because it's a very small town. And the movie doesn't really reach anywhere out of this small town. And it gives the movie a very cozy feeling. It really feels like a very realistic, down to earth and very grounded story. Even though it has giant red pandas, it still feels very relatable, more than any other Pixar movie, I believe. And part of this actually reminds me of Miyazaki, because the thing with Studio Ghibli films is also, they usually have very quiet and small moments in them, and this movie is not quiet. It's not quiet at all, but it has certain similarities with Studio Ghibli in the sense that the story is very small, it's about a very small thing, and it makes it very relatable. And that's what Miyazaki said. Like one of the things that he said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, is that he said that movies don't always have to be about big things to keep the little kids' attention. It's characters that truly keep the kids' attention. And that's what this movie does. It doesn't keep the kids' attentions with explosions and action sequences, because there's very few of that in this movie. It really keeps the kids' attention with the animation and the characters. And I want to talk about the characters. The main character is so likable, so relatable, and I just like her so much. She's not perfect, but that's what makes her great as a character. You want to see a character with flaws and with problems that they will overcome. And all of her friends as well, not just their personalities, but the way that they are animated. The way they're animated, it makes it very easy to tell who is who, because they all look so different and they all act so differently, because they all have so colorful personalities, and it really makes each of the character in this movie really distinct and really memorable. You see their whole personalities spelled right on their faces. You can see from outside the kind of person that they are, and that makes them very, very memorable. And something else I want to talk about is also how this movie feels like it actually has a director. Because the problem with some of Pixar's films, like Toy Story 4, I think, that one movie for instance, it doesn't feel like it has a strong director behind it. It doesn't have a strong singular vision behind it. And in this movie you can feel there is a director directing this movie, because there is a very specific and singular vision in this movie. It's about a very specific kind of thing that only a single person with a very specific life experience could write. And that's what makes these kind of movies worth watching. It's what makes movies, generally movies, worth watching. It's because it's the vision of a single person, but created through the teamwork of like 1,000, 10,000 people. And also this movie isn't just a basic concept of following your dreams, which Soul already did, and did in a very basic way that I did not really enjoy. I thought Soul was disappointing because of that, because it promised so much more, and at the end it was just a basic follow your dreams kind of story. And this movie is the exact opposite, because it promised absolutely nothing. It only promised us a giant red panda. And not only did it deliver the giant red panda, it also delivered on so many of its themes very well. You know, themes like female empowerment, for instance, and we have themes like cultural identity, because the main character is a Chinese Canadian, and that's why she's a little bit confused at kind of these two cultural backgrounds pulling her apart a little bit. And also the place of tradition in the modern world, and how certain traditions can still continue and how they can continue in the modern world. Very interesting topics, especially in a Pixar film, a lot which I don't think have been tackled before. And that's what makes this movie so unique. It does have so many different cultural backgrounds and influences that it feels like such a special movie that Pixar probably had never made before. And I really hope in the future that Pixar will make more movies like this. Although by taking risks there will be detractors, and there are certain controversies surrounding this movie. Most of them I think are really unnecessary and just really stupid, but I can understand some of it, I guess. Some parents don't want to let their kids watch this movie because they think it's inappropriate for people who are too young to learn about puberty, which they will eventually go through anyway. But if you're not comfortable with letting your 7-year-old watch puberty stuff, like periods and sexual urges kind of thing, then just don't let them watch it. Let them stay at home and play with their little toys or something. Let them play with light bulbs, because if that's what they want to do, I don't know. But I think anyone who is comfortable enough to watch this kind of movies, which I think is pretty much everyone, it's just the parents who are uncomfortable, I definitely recommend you to watch this movie. It's the best Pixar movie in years, and I can only hope the future is even better.